So welcome everyone, it's lovely to see you. And I'm really excited to be getting this book out with Bron. It's been quite a while happening, and we were trying to remember when I first met Bron, and I remembered wrong. I met her at a lunchtime show put on by The Last Poets, which was really exciting in Nottingham. They were really inspiring. And then she started coming to write the poem in Nottingham pre-pandemic, when we used to meet together. A fairly hefty crew of us, actually, up to 20 some weeks writing poetry. And you were quite quiet to start, Bron, I think. And then you would sort of stand, it was like a mic drop in the room when you would like produce writing that I would think, oh, wow, where did that come from? So when you approached me to say you were thinking of doing a pamphlet or a collection, I was very excited. The process has been quite long because our Bron is quite picky, actually, got to say. Those of you who have read the book, we've been through with a fine tooth comb, but I did say it's got to be right. There's absolutely no point if you put your heart and soul into a collection of poetry that 6 weeks after it's come out as a book, you open it and think you wish you'd worked a little bit more on this bit or that bit. And I actually enjoyed that process because Bron's very, I think you're very, you know what you want. And it was great to work with someone who was, worked very carefully to get each word right, and we went through with the punctuation and everything. And I have to say, it's a cracking book. Been a pleasure to work on it, and it's a pleasure to read it through after that whole process of putting it together. We've got, I know, Bron, you've invited some people to sort of share the launch with you. So I'm going to hand over to you now.
Okay, thank you very much, Anne. That's a very nice introduction. I've got three special guests here who I've invited to come and read some of their poems. So we'll hear from them first, and then we'll have a little break, and then I'll read some poems from the book. So my first guest is the wonderful Sue Allen, who most poets in Nottingham should know Sue Allen. I'll read you what Sue says about herself. She says, Sue Allen is a poet based in Nottinghamshire who has been performing her work across the East Midlands for around 20 years. She is known for her sharp observation and wit. Her earlier work was funny and feminist in focus. Over recent years, she has examined more serious themes around grief and recovery. Her latest pamphlet, Finding Comfort in Salt, was published in 2020 by Big White Shed, Nottingham, and is currently available directly from Sue. Sue has been featured at numerous poetry festivals and is an active member of DIY Poets and Paper Cranes Poetry Collective. Sue was one of the first poets I ever saw perform in Nottingham, which I think was in 2018 when I first sort of took my very first steps into the local poetry scene. I've had the pleasure of being in several different poetry groups with her since then. She's always been very helpful and supportive, and also an excellent and perceptive poet. So if you'd like to put your hands together and welcome Sue Allen.
Anyway, great introduction. Thanks, Bron. The first thing I need to say is everybody needs to buy Bron's book. It's an order. So I've got, I think, about 6 poems for you, but they're all quite short. So the first one is actually from my pamphlet, and it's called Postcard from the Longview. My boot found the path of stones where our goodbyes lay scattered like sharp intentions on the soul. Deep tread footsteps led me to the fisherman trawling for meaning. He did not speak as I passed, merely flicked his silver fins in acknowledgement. The heron filled the sky like a pterodactyl, and I remembered time had no relevance to the birds. I picked up the fallen angel wing and took it home for safekeeping in a box marked Hope. The second one is again very short, and again from the pamphlet. It's called Burning Through Skin. Long pools in the cups long tears pooled in the cups of my hands, salt burning through skin, exposing white bone, dissolving tears to dust. That's that. I can't hear anybody, it's really strange. This is called The Shape of Water, and it was sort of came out of thinking about the Selkie myth. So this is The Shape of Water. He stole my skin, hid it under his heel, kept it in the back of beyond beneath a jacket of dust. He said it was heavy, unattractive, smelt of fish. I scrabbled under floorboards, dug inside desires, swam down long imaginings, looking for grey hope, juggling the weight of forgetting within an ocean of memories. It was years of treading water before a green child found it, almost sinking me with landlocked questions. Darker than I remember, I used fingers to scratch out meaning, easing out regret, counting out contempt, embracing salt. The creases did not fit my reflection. Should there be armbands? Sizing up the wavelengths, I slipped in and remembered how to rain dance. Thank you. This is a brand new one. It actually came out of a workshop that both Ron and I attend, and Dan sometimes. And the prompt was a song title. And I chose I Wish I Had a River I Could Skate Away On by Joni Mitchell. Unlace your skates, dip your toe, let the cold creep up past your shins, feel green skin deep, moving past your thighs, through your groin, to pool in your chest, flooding your heart with scales and fish bones, memories and tales of other waterways. Escape the slurry bed, let the equilibrium hold you against the glass, folded into waves, applauding your synchronized vortex of being. There is no need to breathe. Air is overrated. Deflate your lungs, rely on the intention of gills, and swim for your life before the river freezes. Thank you. Everybody who knows me knows I'm totally phobic about birds, and this isn't about an encounter I had with a swan when I was walking my dogs. It's just called The Phobic and the Swan. He guards the bridge, threatening to break my arm. No longer mute, he snorts and spits his discordant song. The fisherman trundles by, flips in the bird, throws me a feathery shrug. But I, being fearful, stand hooked in my boots, unable to fly. Thank you. I've got two more. This is just called Whale. I don't know if you're aware of the whale in County Cork in Kilbrittain. It was washed up on the beach and they've strung its skeleton up in a concrete shelter. It looks like a bus shelter, but it's really sad and it made me cry when I saw it. So that inspired this. It's just called Whale. They found me on the beach, already gone to a wider ocean. They said they revered me as they stripped the decaying flesh from my sun-bleached bones. They strung me out on wires, a message to the world, overlooking the sea that had deserted me. 1,000 hands have stroked these bones, 1,000 hands, but only yours felt the heart of me and cried for the weight of it. And I did cry, people, I did. And this is the very last one, still talking about bones. This is Scrimshaw, which is about the etchings that the ancient sailors used to do on whalebone and teeth and tusk. Scrimshaw. Turn me apart with your hands, expose all the historic harpoons etched in marrowbone, outlined in red blood regret. Use your broken fingernail. Tear me apart with your hands, read the runes on my ribs, preserved in the saline of not belonging. Scratch the surface with a rusty blade torn from the hand of a long dead sailor. Tear me apart with your hands, render my soul in boiling oil. Use your battered palms, break through the permafrost, exhume the calcified meaning of loss and tear me apart with your hands. Thank you.
Wow. Woohoo! I've never heard your poetry before, Sue. I absolutely love it.
Oh, thank you so much, Ben.
Just
That was fantastic, Sue. Thank you so much. That was an absolutely brilliant set. Have another hand for Sue, please.
Thanks. I'll go on mute.
Right, so my next guest, my second guest is the multi-talented Umbilica. Umbilica is the poetry and songcraft of Josephine Lewis, whose poetry group Pleasureland emerged in summer 2021. She has contributed poems to the anthologies Us versus Virus and Talk About Change, Writing as Resistance, and in 2018 released an album of songs, Where the Land Meets the Ocean. She was co-founder of performance collective She Speaks and plays in dream pop outfit Rawlix. Is that how you say it?
That's the one.
Rawlix, yes. It's a bit hard to pronounce because there's an exclamation mark in there. She's a facilitator of writing and songcrafting workshops, a tutor of young musicians, and has led choirs and noise-making events to empower women to raise their voices in activism. I first met Jo during lockdown in Write the Poem, which was facilitated at that point by Anne Holloway, who's here tonight, and Chris McLaughlin, where she impressed me with her rather lyrical and thoughtful poetry. I was very pleased to be asked to perform at the launch of her pamphlet Pleasureland last year. It's very much a really lovely pamphlet, also produced by Big White Shed. And so really looking forward to hear what Jo has got to read for us tonight. So please welcome Jo Lewis, Umbilica.
Woo!
Hi everyone, lovely to see you all. Okay, yeah, so I'm Jo, and as Bron said, I do all my creative work under the name Umbilica, most of it anyway. I'm gonna, in Sue's beautiful set that she just did, Sue did a poem about whale bones, and I've got a poem called Whale Music, so I'm gonna start with that one. It's I don't know if you've ever had this experience of lying next to someone you love and feeling somehow hurt that they're asleep and you're not asleep. But there's a bit of that in this poem. Whale Music. Wakefulness cuts off my escape route down to deeper water as you drift beyond reach, grazing the seabed. You don't mean it, but this hemmed-in ache echoes across dark plains to my parents' old bed, empty of waking life. Sandwiched up close to these hanging giants that turn heavily with death grunts, suspended in brine, blindly towed along by sleep. Density of ocean, haunted with lack, muffles my timid breath. Youngsters can't dive deep. Thank you. This poem has Kate Bush in it. It's not really about her, but I've sort of used her as a symbol for some nostalgia that I have for a time that I can't actually literally remember. But when I was born, my parents lived in London. I don't remember it because we moved up north by the time I was 2. And my dad worked in the theatre. He was a theatrical costumier. Yeah, it's a sort of nostalgia poem, In Search of Kate. They said she was from a different planet, swimming through space, arms gracefully extended to embrace all possibility. She was light years ahead of the game. Long fingers flexing, regaling the stars, falling into her hair. Before the sensual world was outstripped by clean lines, airbrushing and artifice, she was astronaut, actor, makeup shining, hands freeze framing her face as the camera zoomed out. Just a pinpoint in space, suspended in a moment when Neverland could still be reached. My father colluded with the secret keepers of make-believe. They could weave the imaginary into being, making magic of textile and light, making something matter. I miss this. When space was made of black velvet and stars out of glitter and silk, the moon hung on a gleaming thread, turning gently in the stream of my breath. The next poem is called Electra. It explores gender and otherness, and I think that's all I'm going to say about it today. Electra. Soggy Saturday morning's shortcut slog through the park, Strong's steps slowed by pattering little patent shoes with tap-tapping toes. No hand to hold, strained carrier bags claim her father's grasp. Weighed down with packet soup and fun-sized fruit, his frame retains momentum, aim and pace unrelenting, even as the way ahead becomes water. Night's downpour left a series of interconnected pools that stretch the breadth of the path, edged by steep and muddy banks. She falters at the puddle's edge. Dad's legs span sea and dry land. His tread invades whole islands. He says, "Come on, this way. Just do what I do." She takes in his giant strides, the gathering distance between them, this labyrinth of water, and her own tiny feet calls, "But Dad, I'm not like you." He pauses. From the other side, he turns and sees his daughter, watches patiently as she finds her own path through the water. Thank you. These poems are from Pleasureland, which Bron kindly mentioned earlier. It came out last year on, Big White Shed published it last year. So after you've bought Bron's book, which you must do, as Sue rightly said, you can find my book and Sue's book on the same website. So if you want to, you can click them all. This poem, the next 2 poems are kind of 2 sides of the same thing. This one is called Your Name. They're poems about grief, grief after the loss of relationships, really. And this is the the sort of hopeful side of grief, I suppose. And it's also a travel poem, which I wanted to do because when I read Ron's collection, there were a few poems that had the essence of travel in them. So this is Your Name. This morning, I hung up your name on a bright paper leaf. I travel, and knowing that you also travel, I leave messages for you in strange corners of the earth. This clifftop church, museum of witchcraft, dirty dressing room wall, a scribble in sand, and the sound of the sea breaking again and again. This is how I speak to you now. Alive, but apart, this balance of love, to hold out hope, but not to cling to it. Time passes. In the intervening years, we may pass within a stone's splash, blindly. Time passes. That's okay. When you're ready, you'll find me. This is the title poem, Pleasureland. This is the not so healthy side of grief, getting stuck in emotional loops. And maybe missing what might be needed of you in the present because you're stuck on a past version of the other and of yourself, the person you were able to be when you were with that person. Pleasureland. The lights go out in my head sometimes. That's when I walk the deserted waterfront. Past the boarded up Pleasureland arcades, the shuttered ice cream stands scraping the closed lid of the sky, I sip cold air and anticipate what I'll find at Land's End. Picturing you, but knowing the dusty museum with its peeling pink paint will slide into view. This is how it goes. I step past the trembling man in the gutter, climb those crumbling steps, and I'm lost inside for days, starving on faded exhibits, my keepsakes of love, thirsty eyes drinking the relics of you and I. Washed out footage of our lovemaking reels around the walls, the only light source flickering across my forehead. Later, I'll stumble down the steps, blinking daylight, dehydrated palms leaking remorse, prizing flecks of pink from under my nails. I'll return the way I came. As I leave the museum this time, the figure in the gutter raises a trembling, pink-flecked hand and calls out to me in your voice. This one isn't in the book. It's called Scene. I'm lowering the mood significantly with this one, I think. So I want to give a content warning for this poem. It makes reference to the aftermath of abuse, and that it thinking about how that impacts not only individuals and families but also communities, and the way that the community responds can in itself be a source of trauma. So thinking about that, look after yourselves. If you need to step out for a minute, I think this poem lasts just over a minute. Okay, scene. My scene is supportive, nurtures well-being. My scene keeps an eye on us. My scene keeps us going. Once my scene was threatened and needed to be made safe. It must have space to grow, to thrive, to breathe. My scene needs investment. It requires that we invest. Oh yes, my scene needs us to support, nurture and believe in it. My scene believes in tolerance, progression, inclusivity. My scene really tries. It's an antidote, a remedy. My scene is open-hearted, compassionate, forgiving, creates spaces where anyone can do anything to anybody. My scene is so inclusive, it gives fresh chances to abusers and invites perpetrators to parties. My scene wraps its arms round my aggressor, holds his head up, discards transgression, whispers to him, "We've all been there, precious." My scene tells me, "Don't fret. Oh, look, he's apologizing. You should get over it so we can carry on being nurturing, supporting, and thriving." My scene closes in, my breath smothered by its embrace. It tells me I am safe. My scene does not understand. I cannot be held by arms that hold my aggressor. I cannot get enough distance to ever rest. Now my tormentor puts on circus tricks, juggling bright globes, all eyes on him, undulating in the light so that when I quit, my scene doesn't notice.
Oh,
Thank you. Okay, I'm gonna do, yeah, this is another dark but short poem. The next two poems are thinking about queerness and yeah, how visible we are in that or not. This is the not so good side. Again, just I'm going to give a content warning for homophobia, transphobia. It's not the hostile laughter at a hand held in public, not the staring, the jeering, or the odd happy slapping. It's not the bile spat out on cracked pavements. It's the people you thought you knew. It's your mother saying, "Explain it. I don't understand why you've chosen this." It's your uncle saying, "God won't like it." It's your granddad writing, "Many thanks, but he'd rather not come for Christmas." Thank you. I'm going to do one more hopeful one to end on. This is Note to Self. There was never a rainbow tattooed on my chest, not even a secret one hidden in a bra cup. No awkward family reveal, no stepping out victory dance, just a note slipped into a shoe, folded underfoot and barely considered. I'm still picking my way down the mountain, turning stones over with wary toe cap, afraid to be witnessed, but the sashaying river calls me on. Now I'm on the river rocks, unlacing sensible shoes. Thank you, everyone. Looking forward to Bronze Step. Thanks for having me.
That was fantastic, Joe. Thank you so much. Oh, well, that was just wonderful. So, my third guest is the marvellous Ken Cumberledge. Ken Cumberledge cut his performance teeth on the Liverpool poetry scene of the 1970s and has never recovered. He writes about love, sex, nature, loss, personal identity and queerness, with an occasional foray into the eerie and macabre. Poke him with a sharp enough stick and he may even wake up long enough to get shouty about politics. After 23 years in East London, in 2011, Ken moved to Norwich, where by and large people leave him alone. He can, however, be lured out of cover by the promise of good company and an open mic, a proclivity that has led him to become an habitué of the slam poetry spoken word scene. He likes it a lot. I also met Ken on Zoom during lockdown. I think it was first in Poetry LGBT, and then in a variety of other open mics, and in the last year also in the allographic writing, which is a shared writing space every Sunday, which is hosted by the excellent Faye Roberts, who is here tonight. Ken is a very impressive performer with a wide-ranging repertoire, and he sometimes, quite often, makes me laugh and cry in the same poem. He is also very generous with his support. You'll want to check out his performances on YouTube and SoundCloud when you've heard what he has to say to us tonight. So please put your hands together and welcome Ken Cumberledge.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much, Vron. That was lovely. When Vron asked me to take part in this book launch, I mean, I was genuinely flattered, and it's a great honor. And I hope what I have to present does it justice. I was just looking, having chosen all the poems I'm going to do in this set, I sort of looked through them and realized that nearly every single one of them is about love in one way or another. So I don't quite know why that happened, but it did. This first one is called Gaze, G-A-Z-E. I caught your gaze, put it in a jam jar with the labels slithered off, wrote gaze in felt tip on the lid, and snuck it somewhere safe, high on a shelf. A silly thing to do, I know. Forgive me. I was young, in love, and being in love, afraid, trying to make provision, insurance of a kind against a time when you might look and there'd be nothing in your eyes but sight. Then I'd reach me down the jar, wash the dust off, hold it up, let it catch the light. Your image filtered through the glass. Pretend. But now, well, the two of us have come so far, known many changes of address, lost key after key, and unsurprisingly, with all the packing and unpacking, I've no idea where it's ended up. Forgotten somewhere or mislaid, in the wrong box. Anyway, astray. I don't even know if it still exists. That is what you were asking, wasn't it? Why nowadays I spend so much time tidying the attic. Thank you. A little swig of water. This next poem is about a relationship many years ago and a particular occasion, a particular day. It's called At the Zoo. We kissed while monkeys wanked behind glass screens, read informative descriptions of creatures too depressed to show themselves, queued for ice cream that would still have been overpriced even if it had been good, hid in the sea lion house, fleeing a berserker horde of sugar-fueled school kids, shot straight out again, eyes streaming, having learned that sea lions reek of rotting fish. And when the hail began, and we shivered in our t-shirts, huddled in a gap between an out-of-order toilet and the bins, you grinned, held me, told me it was the best day out you'd ever had. And I was glad knowing you felt that way too. Thank you. This next poem may not appear to be about love. It actually came out of my grief over the loss of my wife in 2015. But really, grief is love. Grief is just love that's been made homeless. It's sleeping rough. And although this poem is about the manifestation of grief, I think it can also serve for anyone whose state of mental health causes them to become an unwanted source of attention in public. It's called Assistance Needed. They're big on rapid throughput here. The staff know they're being watched. So it's fair to say that just right now, the checkout operators smile while usable, has passed its recommended best before. The problem's you. It's not like last week when you put the card in backwards. That was easy. Nor those other times you've had to punch your pin in more than once. It's not that you've forgotten what the bastard number is. You use the fucker every other day. It's the keypad. You can't see it because without any warning on this special offer Thursday, your eyes have started filling up, leaking down your face. And you stand there raiding pockets on the off chance there's a tissue till, abandoning all hope, and with it anything like dignity, you cut your losses, go for fists in shirt cuffs like a kid. It gets the job done, mind. Besides, by now you're long past caring. So it comes as some surprise to find, in palming your receipt, that she's gone all existential on your ass. You look blank. She sighs, repeats in the special voice reserved for the dim-witted and infirm. Did you find everything you need today? Yes, thanks, you tell her, knowing it's a lie. Because the one thing you do need, they never have here. Someone to hold you while you howl, and not let go until the howling's done. Thank you. When I started writing this next poem, I thought I was just taking the mickey out of my own little personal foibles. I didn't expect it to turn into the kind of poem it is. It's called A Scrivener's Logic. By rights, I shouldn't be typing this. Grown weary of keystrokes, of peering at pixels, I'm doing my best, far from level, but still, to become reacquainted with writing in longhand. Fished out and flushed out my favourite old fountain pen, bought some ink, wild colours just for the crack, and now, with the urge hard upon me, I'm off. Labels, lists, letters, and early draft poems on fat, faint-ruled office pads. God, I get through 'em. It makes my wrist ache, but I've no choice. I'm hooked. Slave to a mad, blotting thirst, long neglected, that, having had sup, may not ever be slaked. My reward for this torrent of fevered endeavour? The prize for my pen and its partnering pain? An atrocity. It's like I've murdered the page with a blunt-bloodied hatchet while riding bareback on a rioting elephant and simultaneously receiving electric shock treatment. In midst of an earthquake. Swipe me, it's a mess. Still, it's early days yet. Who can say, in a decade or so, it might edge upon legible? Fine, even. Never, though. Never will it dare compare with one syllable of your own sweet, unique script. And I ought to know, being fashioned by nature to order, curate, and preserve all that's precious to me, I've the lot, every note, lyric, letter, and card, every jot of your pen from the moment of our first acquaintance, kept safe in a box file. One of an armful I plucked from the street years ago when a local solicitor's practice was moving. The label still says, Deeds of Trust. As good a description as any, I guess, for the treasure it holds now. Although I confess, I have one I prefer. I'm scared if I tell you, you might laugh at me. It's an allegory. Were some mischievous puck to contrive that henceforth spring be dumbstruck, birds barred from expression in song, obliging the creatures to play out their passion by some other means, then, in my estimation, the dance of your hand is the shape it would take. Yes, the dash, sweep, and curl of the marks that you make are like spring. There's the thing. Ineluctable. True. By simple deduction, therefore, it's no trouble to reach the conclusion I've known my life through. That whatever exists and of itself speaks of spring, speaks of you. Thank you. This next poem is not about love. It's about the only one that isn't. It came out of a workshop exercise, this was part of an allographic writing, as Ron was mentioning. The exercise was to write a letter to an inanimate object. And I decided to write a letter to the letter I was in the process of writing. And it ended up like this. My dear, good starter, eh? Note the neat, nay, artful way I've got around the greeting bit. Avoided self-defeating it in endless metatextual loops, tail-chasing to infinity. Instead, my dear, affectionate, sincere, and yet succinctly circumspect. Safely unspecific. A nifty fit, you must admit, and take my word, you must. You have no say, you see, an irony not lost on me, given that saying is the why, the what, the be and all of you, is, in a very real sense, the thing you do. But that's the deal, a contract worth the paper you're being written on. Should its terms appear unusual, duress, let me impress on you, it was ever thus, and with good cause. Creators must by nature be dictators, and as one such, I remain forever yours. Thank you. I'm going to go back to love now. I'm going to finish off with this poem, which is a love poem for non-believers. It's called A Proposal. Another swig of water, I think. Let's you and I be atheists together. Eschew all creeds, acknowledge no invented deities, mono, pantheic or trinitas facsimiles, mere embodiments of human traits and frailties, the people's opium. Let's put no stock in orthodoxies, hierarchies, that shit, the mechanics of oppression gussied up as holy writ, nor set no store by karma nor nirvana, trust no carrot and stick covenants of paradise to come. Be numb to numerology, make no apology for finding nothing in it but a game that's strictly zero-sum. Let our fetishes be kinky ones, not superstitious totems. No rabbit's feet, no lucky pants, no dried-out monkey scrotums. We'll give short shrift to animistic talismans and shamans, respect no demonologies, well, maybe Neil Gaiman's, invest no supernatural heft in any natural creature, and live free, parsnips unbuttered by the utterance of guru, priest or preacher. And before he gets too cocky counting chickens, Dawkins, that list includes you. If not, then what else should we do? Waste our time on purgatory and limbo? Thanks, but no. Strive to rise through 7 or more multi-leveled heavens. That can go. I want a life finite and precious, then oblivion, not bloody Nintendo. Don't get me wrong, I'm not depressed. Not here suggesting we be nihilists or cynics, locked in endless self-analysis, expensively examining our existential angst. Let's be jaw-dropped, gobsmacked, awestruck by the wonder of it all, and let that wonder be enough. How much more wonderful that there's no plan, no architect, and nobody to thank. So come on, baby. Let's apostatize. As rational adults, let us consent to this descent, be dissident in word and deed, and rise to meet life's challenge, clear-eyed and eager. 'Cause, to misquote Neil Diamond and the Monkees' biggest single, I saw your face, now I'm unbeliever. Old habits have a habit of persisting, though, so you mustn't mind it too much if I worship you a bit. Make sacrifices, lay my votive offerings at the altar of your days. 'Cause I believe in us, you see, in you and me, religiously. To this I promise to be true, that if you'll have me, if I'll do, I shall keep faith with you and pray you'll stay. And that's me done, folks. Thank you very much indeed. I'm really looking forward to hearing Bron reading from her book. Thanks, everyone.
Wow. Ken, that was amazing.
You're going to have to read the chat later, Ken, because there's some fantastic comments in there. There's just
Thank you all. You're very kind.
No.
In fact, you all need to read the chat. Everyone who's read so far, there's lots of lovely comments in there. Thank you very much indeed. Thanks for
Thank
coming.
you. I haven't got a book out, but I'll pop a link to my my stuff on the web, etc. So you can go and visit that.
I think we need a little rest after that, because I personally do not want to start reading immediately after Ken's set. Never do, because you need a little break now, I think. So if you just quick 5 minutes, just in case you want to grab a cup of tea, go to the loo, all that kind of thing. So I'm going to start with the first poem in the book, which is called Patterns, and it's after Keith Hudson, who wrote the first line. And this first line was the last line of a poem of his called Blind Date, but this is Patterns. And I do just need a quick drink of water first, especially with this poem. To dream of great interdependent wheels, to see each cog and piston turn and move and turn the next, so each propels the other, cause and effect, charmed me as a child and drove my thirst to know how things worked. First question to Mum and Dad was how all the plumbing worked. Dad had to draw a diagram, guessing some, and on it went. My need to know, to read, to see the blueprints and the patterns grew, to know what made things tick and live. I was so sure it was patterns through and through, times tables, magic chanted, periodic table enchanted by neatly ordered sequences of each same small part producing difference. DNA helix, Fibonacci seashell, Mandelbrot fractal, patterns dancing everywhere. When you look for patterns, there they are, till I reached 40, when all patterns fell apart, and there behind the patterns, the stunning random beauty of what is. Pattern to a point, but much more truth and magic in the real, the outlier, the actual, not neat, not part of sequence, not accounted for, that simply, as science itself moved from apple to cloud of empty space crossed by random trail. The pattern, only part of any tale. This one's called Glorious Green Jumper. I never saw you wear it, ma'am. A gift perhaps, but I don't know who from. It nestled, luminous, pristine, prickly in your drawer, untroubled but for us kids trying on your clothes, dancing in a vibrant, verdant, woolly dress, the brightest green you ever saw. Emerald, Italian, knit from luxury mohair, which I had never seen before. Open work pattern in front, knit large, plain stocking stitched behind, but no one could call this plain. Its splendour outshone other clothes. Colour and texture made my spirit soar. Its heyday came years later when I wore a big old white work shirt of Dad's untucked with the glorious green jumper over it to every teenage gig, rock, punk, new wave. It pogoed with me, always the first one on the floor, danced off with me to greener, more vivid shores. I can just hear a little clapping coming from the other room there. I wonder who that could be. Thank you. This one's called Risk Assessment. You could put your eye out with that, my mother said quite frequently, in the vicinity of knitting needles, umbrellas, chopsticks, any kind of stick, when she was not relaying the tale of the person who left a plug in a socket and came back from holiday to find their house burned down. You can drown in 2 inches of water, I'm reliably informed, by the most rigorous risk assessor I have ever known. The river weed will catch my ankle and pull me down. The sea tide will carry me away from shore, never to be seen again. If I sit on the floor, I will get piles. If I stand up, I will get varicose veins. If I read in less than optimum lighting, I will go blind. Danger everywhere, in everything. There was another kind of warning too. Be careful what you say in school. Being a heretic will affect your marks. If you don't go to church, the priest will know and you'll be in trouble on Monday. In vain, we tried to explain. These were the 70s, not the 40s. Things did not work that way now. Be yourself, but don't say too much. Stand your ground, but run away. Fight another day. Question everything, except your parents. Have your own style, but you can't go out looking like that. Other people's opinions don't matter, but what will the neighbours think? I learned to risk assess my mother's risk assessments. They were a hazard I had to navigate, hard to sift the nuggets of real wisdom from the over-anxious. It's a wonder I took any risks at all, but I rebelled against restriction. When I left home, I walked down dark alleys alone at night because I could. I hitchhiked all over the country, sat on many floors, but unplugged almost everything before going away and used several methods of contraception at once. Getting pregnant will ruin your life, she'd said, so I didn't ever, so thoroughly did she convince me. I am keenly attuned to every misstep I or another might make, every eye that could be put out. I can see danger everywhere, the sweet wrapper I might slip on, the bath that might overflow, the shopping bag that might break, all the things that might fall off or out or under. How hard it must have been for her, with us, her hostages to fortune. How hard to care so much, such worry. I did not know for many years about her narrow escape from an attacker, how she had gone from being carefree and adventurous to never leaving the house alone at night ever again for the next 60 years. And yet she let us go our own way, peppered with advice and admonitions as we went. She wanted us to be freer than she had ever been. Okay. This hasn't got a separate title, so I'll just start in on this one. Adventurer without a plan, without a destination, without a clue, just knowing when the whiff of magic comes along, you have to follow it. Sniff it out, find out where it takes you. Step out like the travelling fool you are. Learn how to stay on that track, but also how to let yourself be diverted. How to surf the waves of fascination till you wind up nowhere near where you thought you'd be. This is the stuff of life, the quickening pulse, the hint that makes you curious, the side path overgrown with weeds that draws you. Follow it. Follow the scent of meaning, the random unknown mystery. While it keeps you moving, you are going somewhere. Follow the meaning of words. Follow trails that may not be trails, the rubber bands discarded by postmen letting you know you're on the right track. Follow memory, magic, connection, coincidence. It does not matter where it takes you. There is no lost. Over this way. This is Roller Coaster. I have stood at the sides of many roads, pack on my back, thumb stuck out, surfing the road network, driven by intent, by chance, by coincidence. I have been to Cornwall, to Coventry, to Canterbury, Carmarthen, Camden, in search of company, like minds, other activists, friends, firelight festivals, a pub with good beer, a party, a bookshop, a place to sleep. I've hitched from junction to junction, from one transport caff to the next in the interests of speed and a good plateful of egg, chips and beans with bread and butter and a pot of tea. I have hitched alone and with friends, spent nights by the side of roads on chilly roundabouts, wearing my pack for warmth. in motorway services to keep warm and wait for traffic to pick up. Once I hitched across country with 3 tall Dutch women. We were all picked up by someone who knew my ever worrying mother 200 miles away. He had to be sworn to secrecy. We squeezed into his small car with our packs, his guitar, and a lot of determination. I've been to Greenham Common over and over till my path down the motorways and A roads was almost visible, like a silvering snail trail with tent, boot, sleeping bag, swinging up into the cabs of trucks or folding down into sports cars. Standing in the spaced out queue at the service exit road, sometimes with a cardboard sign exchanging travel for company, conversation, and once the rolling of a fat spliff for the driver, done slowly so it was ready just in time for us to be dropped off. Riding the roller coaster till eventually all the lifts dropped off. Something changed, something in the air, insurance policies, the times, the willingness to stop for a stranger, the driver's fear of the hiker outweighing the hiker's fear of the driver. Just the 80s taking their toll. Well, you may have gathered, and any of you that know our family know that I grew up in a very political family, hence the references to heretics in the risk assessment poem. But this poem is sort of commemorates some of that and where it went after my childhood, and it's called Repeat Many Times. When I was a child, duplicators with purple fluid turned out copies from inky stencils in our front room. In my teenage years, leaflets came back from printers to be creased and then folded, then stuffed into envelopes. Later, there were the lesbian printers, ink splattered and friendly, who produced our student flyers and posters, since reproduction has always been a feminist issue. At the Peace Camp, we wrote zines, learnt to print them ourselves, then back in town, learnt all over again to set up courses, start a magazine, a decade of offset printing in the cellar, producing subversive underground literature. Paper plates, fount solution, etch, ink, paper, card, collating, stapling. You can write anything you want on a piece of paper, make a plate, set up the machine, turn the handle to make another and another. Repeat many times. Turn up the speed, drum rotating, sheets piling up, your words, another's words, someone drawing, flying past in a blur. The machine's speed has a rhythm, a pitch. You can sing along, sing harmonies even. All those hours below stairs, breathing the chemical tank of ink, feeding in paper, making sure the right pages end up back to back, numbers counting down, pages stacking up, carrying boxes of printed paper up and down flights of stairs, then parcels to the post office, releasing our creations to fly far, spreading our words out into the world. Repeat, repeat again, repeat many times. This next one is called Roots. And it starts with an unfamiliar word, but I define it immediately. So it's I couldn't resist using a long word that I didn't know already. Phytomorphize yourself. Imagine being tree, seedling, flower, blade of grass, sprouting from small beginnings, fluent in the language of carbon, nitrogen, sun-gleaned sugar answered with nutrients, singing along synapses, internet of fungus beneath our feet, each footstep unaware of 300 miles of tangle below. No plant as tip of iceberg, vast unseen chatter of electric pulses, scents rich in information, roots listening, stretching for water, symbiotic mycorrhizal threads uttering words no human knows, spelling out warnings, new mown grass smell signaling danger from every cut. Here, tree song, forest hum, wind whispering treetops, rustling leaves, a mere snatch of dimly perceived complex green polyphony interconnected in a way no human ever is, This is what we gave up when we pulled up our roots and moved away, trading deep communion for run and leap. Ancient instinctive language fading, our spoken words a clumsy substitute for the long lost wood wide web. And here's another nice long word, pareidolia. The meaning will become apparent if you're not already familiar with it. Quick. You see a face. I see it too. Eyes, nose, mouth. Faces peek from nooks and crannies, patterns of light and shadow. Funny, contorted, but alive with meaning. And more, the whale in the cloud becoming camel, weasel, sailing ship, the Rorschach blot, canals on Mars, Kotuk octopus looking for a fight, hunter in the night sky, horse's head of gas and dust, the stain on the ceiling, the shape of Australia, campfire dragons spewing flames, collapsing incandescent into something else. And faces, more faces everywhere, cars grinning, winking, frowning, that pile of rocks, that undulant hill, on the veil, the shroud, Jesus and Mary on pieces of toast, yesterday in the grain of a plank of wood, today on a potato scone, peering out, casting sidelong glances, all like the face in the moon, head tilted back, open-mouthed as if surprised by something. These days, they don't think we're mad, just mistaken, at the mercy of that pesky fusiform face area just behind the ear for divining hostile or friendly physiognomies. A split-second survival skill foolishly extrapolated. But if I must believe light is particle as well as wave, then I want both epiphany and apophany, science and magic, to make sense of all this sensual cacophony. The next poem I wrote this, one of the things I did in early lockdown to take my mind off how horrible everything was I got really into looking at posts on the internet about old photographs and maps of, particularly of Nottingham, but anywhere I've ever lived really, but Nottingham particularly. And there's some incredible stuff to be seen if you dig into it. And that was what prompted this poem, which is called Ghosts. The land we live on here remembers when this was all fields, an orchard, woods and lanes this side of the railway and canal. The curves and walls of bungalow estates, not yet a twinkle in the planner's eye. All that was sketched in later on. Our lives sit lightly here on top of land which thinks it's still unfurrowed fields. Well, down there in the town, ghosts jostle for space, buildings conceal what still lies beneath, old walls still stand there behind facades, foundations, footprints used for newer plans, pensioned off tunnels, older sandstone caves stretched down strata back several hundred years. Some things are still remembered by the old, some moments caught in sepia, black and white, some marked in maps and stories, some in song, some lost beneath the layers of years and change. Each map a prize of treasure, laying out the history of the geography of then, the geography of the history of now, as it morphed, one tooth extracted at a time, replaced, removed again, rebuilt, and then bulldozed into a memory fading out, captured only by these marks upon a page, this place name, echoes of a pattern changed. And this next one is called My Life is an Apple Tree, after Judy Grahn. I stole the title from Judy Grahn. And it is a true story, in fact. Okay. My life is an apple tree, but not the one that died that hot summer when everything scorched and dried up. It was too small to survive the drought and we were not paying enough attention. I still mourn that apple tree, given by a friend in the depth of winter, only to die at the height of summer, had liked imagining the tiny orchard it would make in that corner of the garden, blossom in the spring, fruit in the autumn. How I would pick up pieces of apple twig, take their magic into the house, pick apples, fallen to the ground solid and rosy with life, sweet and tart, tangible expression of the apple tree that is my life. My life is an apple tree, but I could not keep that slip alive, even in this rich soil. One day we will try again for that magic which eludes us. And I'm going to finish with this poem, which is called 12 Months. And it's actually after 3 different poets. Penelope Shuttle, UA Fanthorpe and Ruth Bidgood have all written very similar poems. And I wrote this quite a while ago now, I think 2009. I went to a workshop with Penelope Shuttle. It was on at Beeston Library, and possibly something that gave me a bit of a nudge towards writing more poetry later on when I finally started writing a bit more regularly. So this is 12 months. A month is called bone. The wheel turns, decks cleared, stripped down, structure revealed. A month is called poetry. Light thickens in corners, waiting, watching, beginning to rise, covered in snowdrops. A month is called magic. Time quickens, tips, sparks strike in the mind, another labyrinth beckons. A month is called deadline, holidays taken, accounts settled, night recedes. A month is called play, clouts cast recklessly, windows opened, fires lit, good fortune toasted. A month is called green. The plump day expands, stretches its arms wide open. A month is called revelry, celebration of life, now or never. A month is called the land, harvest, community, ecstatic rain hammers out drum beats. A month is called plenty, gather in, take care of business, start again. A month is called fey, dissolution, light fading, soggy leaves, things sinking, woodland mushrooms rising from the underworld. A month is called double duvet, deeper, deeper down, breath starts to appear, scarf, woolly socks, light box. A month is called fire, full depth of darkness, horizontal, crystalline, pink and golden light, worth waiting 12 months for. Thank you very much.
Oh, that was lovely.
Woo-hoo!
Yay!
Woo-hoo!
Oh, Ron, thank you so much. I've put in the chat, it's really weird when you've worked so long on them to hear them in your voice. It's absolutely wonderful, totally different from reading them in the book. And it makes me just want to go back and read them all again. There's bits that I've completely forgotten and gone, yes, Ron, yes, I remember that. The green jumper, the green jumper.
Yes, I even feel like that about some bits of my poems that I've forgotten are in there. Most of the ones I've just read are things that I have read quite a bit. So there are other poems in there as well that I haven't read so much. So it's
and cracking guests as well. Thanks so much for. Obviously, I've heard Joe and I've heard Sue, but again, I forget what it's like. But Ken, it's really lovely to have heard your poetry, and the supermarket keypad. that just did me in.
That was a day. Yeah.
I just think it must resonate with so many people.
I hope so.
Been in. Thank you so much. Fantastic.
And I must say thank you to Anne, partly for hosting tonight, which has been lovely, but also Anne has been running groups that have kept us going throughout lockdown, and that's been really important, because I think, yeah, we started at one point, we were meeting every week
Mm.
and reading poems to each other and having a good laugh and catching up on how we all were, and it really does make a difference when
Definitely.
it's hard. It really, yeah,
Yeah.
really made a big difference. So thank you very much, Anne.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think, you know, quite a few
Publishing us all.
Thank you for letting me. Thank you for trusting me. What a good cohort of poets, though, you know. Again, I forget. And then when I think, oh, yeah, there was Sue. Oh, yeah, there's Ron. There was Joe. What a cracking bunch you are. It's been fantastic. And I
And-
think that's been the thing about the poetry workshops. It's such a mutual learning space. That's what I love about it so much.
Mm. Well, thank you everybody for coming. Thank you ever so much for the hosting and for everything.